G'day, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these, which is a Polikarpov I-15. The Polikarpov I-15 was the standard fighter of the Russian army at just up to the outbreak of war. It was a standard Russian fighter aircraft throughout the war between Japan and Russia, the Gol incident, and was pretty much the standard fighter aircraft of the Chinese army right up until 1939. So it's a handy, neat little aircraft, and of course it's a biplane, which does present a slight amount of challenge when it comes to scratch building one yourself. And this is the aircraft that I've designed and built, and I'm going to show you how to build it. The aircraft was quite an interesting aircraft because it was the first aircraft to use air-to-air missiles. The Russians started using air-to-air missiles in around about 1938, and they were 82mm rockets which they would fire in banks at enemy aircraft in the vain hope they might damage them. Believe it or not, they actually proved rather successful and shot down quite a few Japanese aircraft during the war with Japan, which took the Japanese by surprise. And it was this aircraft that made that possible. The aircraft was replaced as newer, more modern versions of Japanese aircraft came out. The Japanese, when the war started, were flying a very out-of-date aircraft, which was replaced by the Ki-27, which this was more than capable of taking on, although the Ki-27 was slightly more manoeuvrable. But of course, as soon as the Ki-43 came out, then pretty much anything the Russians had in the air didn't really stand a chance. So it's an interesting aircraft, and it's certainly been an interesting aircraft to make, and now I'm going to show you how I made it. And here we go. So here we have the basic shape of the Polikarpov I-15. This is a biplane, which is a lot different from doing a normal aircraft. So we obviously have two sets of wings, however we have to decide how to put the biplane wings on. So there's the basic shape of the aircraft. It's actually an exact copy of the I-16 I made earlier. The bottom wing is there, and that's the top wing, and I've put score lines on where I'm going to actually score into the wing to make it all nice and gull shaped. And there's the tailplane, and this is a bit of balsa which we're going to cut up, and as you can see it fits just on the side there quite nicely, and then you just shave the balsa. So here we have the actual plane assembled. You can see the stubby little wings on the bottom and the tailplane's on the back, and it's nicely thinned out. Now that needs to be cut into so you can put the pilot inside it. This isn't something I'm worrying about at the moment, because this is actually a copy of the I-16 design. So next you're going to need the wing struts, which are just basically two pieces of card, but you can use anything. If it was a different fighter like a Sopwith Swordfish, something like that, or maybe a Gladiator, I would use possibly pieces of metal, small pieces of metal to use as struts, but the I-16 had quite solid wooden struts, so they go on like that. Now the top plane is here, and as you can see the top plane is a sort of gull wing shape, and the idea is the top plane will fit onto the top of the aircraft like this. But first you have to do the fuselage before you put this on, and the wing struts go on as well, so it all fits together. We will see how it turns out. It's not my first time making a biplane, but it is my first time making a 28mm scale biplane. I usually do 6 or 10mm. This is a new one for me. So we'll see how it turns out when I've got the wing on and the fuselage in place. But it should work out fine. So now you can see I have put on the top plane of the aircraft, the top wing, and I have done some of the main fuselage all the way up to the cockpit. You can see the cockpit visor is there, and that's how it's stuck on. The struts are just basically a piece of card, and I've just cut the card in the middle and on the sides to make it nice and gull shaped, and that's how easy it is. So now I have to do the main part of the fuselage, and we'll see what it looks like after that. And now I have actually added the fuselage, or the rear fuselage. You can see the rear fuselage here. I have left a space for the pilot's head, and that's the main part of the body just there. So it is really now beginning to look like an aeroplane. So all I really have to do now is add the detail to the tailplane and the top plane, and then the aircraft will be done. And here we have the completed version of the airplane. I have added the milliput to the top wings and the tailplane. So now you see it's really begun to take shape properly. I could add a pilot's head, which I may do later, but that's something I might add later. So next thing is painting. So I'm going to paint it up and see what it looks like all nice and painted. And here is the finished aircraft, fully painted up in Russian colours. It's in early war Russian colours, used from 1937 onwards, which is a light green with a dark green over the top to slightly split the shape up. And I've dry brushed it to make it look really dirty and well used, because I'm using it on the Far East, Russia versus Japan. So I'm using it in the Cackling Gull incident and those sort of battles. So it looks rather rugged and dirty and scruffy and covered in dust, and I just like that kind of look. If you're doing Barbarossa type aircraft, then you need to go for the all over green aircraft. They didn't tend to go for camouflage. Some of the larger aircraft used to go for a lighter green with a darker green, but slightly lighter than this. But most of those got shot down and replaced by just a standard dark green. And then as the year progressed, the Russians tried out several different colour schemes depending on whereabouts they were fighting. I'll just also show you, while I'm here, I made 2 for the price of 1. The main reason for this is I am also doing the war in China. And the aircraft in question, the Polikarpov I-15, was used extensively in China. I think about 250 aircraft were sent there to fight, and most of them were piloted by volunteer pilots, although Chinese pilots did fly them themselves. Russia supplied far more volunteer pilots than any other country, and they also supplied the majority of China's equipment for the early part of the war. So I can use this from 1937 onwards in all the battles between Japan and China, and so I have given it nationalist Chinese markings, and I also have the Russian version as well. They were also used extensively in the Spanish Civil War, so you've got lots of things you can do with it. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing me put one of these together and show you how to do it, and I hope it gives you some ideas about doing this sort of thing yourself. If you enjoyed the video, then please click like. If you want to see more, then subscribe and let me know what it is you'd like to see me do next. This has been me, thank you very much, and good day.